Black Friday.
Oh, quite a few, actually.
Right. I used to go a lot more often, but then they started making Black Friday into Thanksgiving. So, and right now you can just go to the computer and buy whatever you want to without standing in line. But I did go to did do some Black Friday shopping. So, but we waited until 10-ish or whatever in the morning. So we went to Riverdale. You all know what Riverdale is? It's where all the parking lot looks like the city of Coon Rapids. You know, it's got all these squirrely roads all over. It's easy to run into people. I wasn't driving. So I went with my son Barry and his girlfriend Megan and my youngest sister Jill. Jill's a beautician. And so we went to this store called ULTA. Has anyone ever been to ULTA before? Now, it was mostly women's hands. Did you notice that? Because I didn't even know what it was. I thought, well, maybe, ULTA, what kind of store is that? So, Megan goes, we have to go to ULTA. So, whatever. And so you walk in the door, and you automatically know once you walk in the door that guys are not supposed to be there. You walk in the door, and it's one of those stores full of makeup and perfume. And there's this white lady in a coat, and I don't know if she was there to take me away or what. But she knew. She was just looking for guys in particular. She goes, oh, I'm so glad you came. I'm giving this to all the men today, and it's some kind of facial scrub. I don't even know what it was. I'm going, thank you. So Barry has learned that he should follow Megan. So Barry's following Megan through the store, and after a while, Barry stops after Megan went past, and he goes, Dad. And he shows me this thing of, I think it's rouge or whatever, but he goes, this is the brand that Megan likes, just in case you want to get her this for Christmas. And so I pick it up, $30. $30. I mean, can't she just bleed a little and put it on her cheeks? I put it back. And when you walk into ULTA, there is this fragrance that is overpowering because there are all kinds of fragrances there. Now, I learned that, guys would call women's fragrance perfume, right? And I also learned that guys' fragrances are called cologne. But when you go into ULTA, everything is called fragrances. And so there's all this fragrance going on. So I wouldn't, if you're allergic, don't even go past the doors. And we're looking through the whole store, and I'm just, wow, this is crazy. ULTA. What kind of name is ULTA? And I'm thinking, I don't know. I have no idea, but it works well for this sermon title. I hate titling sermons. I really do. So this one I tried to make work, but I digress. So today we are in the Gospel of Mark. How many of you are reading through the New Testament in 90 days? A lot of you are. Wonderful. Great. We are in the Gospel of Mark. We're almost out of the Gospel of Mark. It's a pretty short gospel. It's the oldest gospel that we have. Most scholars would concur that Mark was the first gospel that was ever written down on parchment or whatever you want to call it. So that's the oldest gospel. You'll notice it's the shortest gospel. We also believe that Mark was getting his source from someplace else as well. So there's someplace else that we lost. So Mark is more like this little, someone defined it as little pearls on a string. So you get to hear a lot of the stories, but you don't hear a lot of elaboration. And that's the Gospel of Mark. But you'll notice when we read all the Gospels that there's all kinds of stuff that may happen in the beginnings, and some stories that are in some and some stories that are not. But when we get to the end, when we get to Holy Week, you'll notice that all the Gospels slow down. When Gospels or when anything slows down, that means pay more attention. So here we are, and we are at the house of Simon the leper. Now, I want you to imagine being invited to somebody's house called Simon the leper. Leprosy is this very contagious disease. In Jesus' time, it was so bad that you often were told to go live somewhere else. If you ever got near somebody who didn't have leprosy, you had to shout out, "Unclean, unclean," so that somebody wouldn't come close to you. And now you got an invitation in the mail. It would be Jerusalem Express, and it says, "Go to the house of Simon the leper for supper." How many of you would want to go to a leper's house for supper? All right, none. All right, gotcha. Now, I don't know if Simon is one of the lepers that Jesus healed early on in his ministry or not. Probably not. My guess is that somebody just nicknamed this Simon the leper. And I'm just guessing, because have you ever been around people that you just kind of call by nicknames and, "Oh, that's Simon the leper, we're going to go to his house for supper." Man, you guys are just not feeling it today. Yeah, I'm going to have to put some buzzers underneath your seat or something. So here we are. We're at Simon the leper's house. Now, when you go to dinner at any place at that time, you're not going to be seated at a table like what we think of a table. You're going to be seated at this horseshoe, and the table is probably about, this high, and then around the table will be these all kinds of cushions. And you'll sit on the cushion. Well, guys, you'll sit on the cushion, and you'll put your one arm on there, and you'll relax, you'll recline at the table, and there'll be servants who will wait on you, and it's a slow affair. So that's what's going on here, that we have this table full of friends of Simon's, and Jesus is at the table. And now we have this woman who comes in. Now, women were not allowed to eat at the table. They wouldn't be there. They might have prepared the food. More than likely, they probably aren't even bringing the food to the table. They would have male servants who probably did that, but it wouldn't be that far-fetched to have women waiting the tables as well. But there's this woman who comes in. Now, I don't know how she gets in. She's not welcome. Now, the other Gospels, some name this woman, some don't. Some we believe might be two different accounts. It might be, but regardless, I want you to think of this woman coming in to Simon the leper's house. Now, when anybody catches a glimpse of her, their thought immediately would be this: she shouldn't be here. She should not be here. Then she does this. She goes over to Jesus. And she has this jar. Everybody there would know what this jar meant. It's this alabaster jar. Alabaster is this, kind of like a marble-ish kind of thing. And inside this jar, it probably has a long neck on it. And inside this jar is this very expensive fragrance called nard. Now, we probably would not brand it as nard anymore, right? It sounds too much like lard. So you wouldn't go to ULTA and go, "Hey, I'd like the fragrance nard." Yeah, they would. Well, we don't have that. But if you would say, "I want Chanel, whatever it is, number 58," they would, "Oh, you want that? It's very expensive, you know." "Yes, I do know. I'd like to have some." So she has this jar of fragrance. Now, likely this jar of fragrance was worth a year's wages, especially for this woman. So it's very, very expensive. And the people around would know just by looking at the jar what she has. And she goes over to Jesus, and she breaks the jar, and she pours all of it over Jesus. All of it. She shows ultimate love. Last week after worship, most of you don't know, some of you may, we had a funeral service here. The funeral was for a woman named Marilyn Welsh. Marilyn she wasn't a member of our congregation. She didn't come to worship services on Sunday mornings. I received a phone call earlier that week and from her daughter saying, you don't know me. I'm not a part of your congregation, but my mom just died, and we'd like to have the funeral at your church. And I'm a newbie. Well, yeah, we can have the funeral. What are you thinking? And so she says, one of the things that's important to her is she says, well, I hear that at your church that you have a meal. Yes, we do. And I'm thinking in the back of my head that the person, some of you know, the person who's in charge of the meals for funerals is Bev Davis. And I learned early on that you do not want to cross Bev Davis. I learned. There was just this aura. When you said Bev Davis, it was like, okay. So you're telling me that you'd like to have a funeral here and you'd like to have a meal. How would you like coffee and cake? No, you really do want a meal. Well, she talks to me a little bit more. Dawn talks to me about her mom. Her mom, although she's not a member or comes to worship at the church, she has been in the church a lot. She is one of the folks who works with Alcoholics Anonymous, with AA. And almost every Thursday night, she's been here, and she did a lot of leadership within that group. She would, in essence, pour out everything that she had for other people. Once she became sober, she did all kinds of things for other folks. She was very into helping folks with domestic abuse. She was she sponsored all kinds of women for AA, and her daughter was saying, Mom we would really like to have a meal afterwards. So I'm thinking, well, I said, I have to check, because I don't know. I knew better than just to say yes without checking with Bev. So Dawn checked on some things. I call Bev up. And Bev, this is Pastor Randy. Yes. And Bev, there's a person who just called me, and they'd like to have a funeral. They're not from the church, and they would like to have it on Sunday, and they would like to have a meal. Now, this is what I'm thinking I'm going to hear. I'm thinking I'm going to hear this silence on the other end, and the question, they're not from our church? But this is what I heard. Well, yes, we can do that. Okay, they want a meal. Yeah. We have 3 different kinds. They can pick from any of those. Do you know how many people they're expecting? I said, well, they're saying 150. Okay. Thanks, Bev. Wonderful. It's on a Sunday, right after church. So there's not like the morning yeah, well, we will make anything work. Randy, yes. Our desire is when people walk through those doors, is we want people to know that we care. And that's the word she told me. When the people walk through these doors, we want people to know that we care. Now, I don't know how many of you know about the ministry that takes. It takes a whole cadre of people. And Bev is the one who leads that up. But she was basically saying that I don't care who the funeral is for. When they walk through those doors, we want those people to know that our church cares. Now, after the worship service was over, there was more than 150 people here. And when you have a funeral service at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and it ends at 4, they're hungry. And so they're eating everything. There's a lot of folks, and they're hungry. So by the time I get there, I notice that there's only one little bit of scalloped potatoes and ham, and there's lots of veggies. And I just thought for myself, I said, I'll leave these veggies for everybody else, because who am I to eat that? So I did take a piece of cake, but we ran out of cake. We ran out of a hot dish. And And so I went and sat down at one of the tables and asked how they knew Marilyn, and they were telling me, they said, you know, when we walked in, I was really amazed at your church and all this. Because Marilyn was a member of your church, was she? I said, no, she wasn't a member of our congregation, but this is what we do. He said, and did you notice that the silver service was out? That you even have a silver service pouring coffee? And frankly, I'd been to a couple funeral services before and saw the silver service out there. And I've been a pastor of a number of churches. And although all of the churches, and literally all those churches, had silver services in their kitchens, this is the first time that I've been to a congregation where we actually used them. And so the people around the table were just saying, wow, that you really go all out. You even pour coffee for everybody. Now, what they were saying is that we noticed that you care. Now, I'll grant you that it would be a lot easier to serve in all kinds of different ways, but the people who went to that funeral not only got to witness to the love that they shared with the deceased and all the ministry she was about, but they also got to witness the ministry of all of you in the way that we care. How do we show ultimate love to Jesus? For all of us, it will be different. But will any of us be like what happened with Jesus in that story? Remember, everybody else is around going, why on earth did you waste all that stuff? Why'd you bring out the silver service? We have the styrofoam cups. That's what they're used to in AA anyway. And Jesus said, what she has done will be remembered whenever the gospel is told. It's my prayer, friends, that all of us will be remembered whenever the gospel is told. Amen.